And it's Ken Kraetzer for CBSI Services Talking Business, our interview series talking with leaders in the fields of banking, insurance, customer service, digital marketing, and business education, all to highlight the work done by our team at CBSI Services based in Harrison, New York. We provide insurance-backed benefits and customer service management to the payments industry. And today we have a chance to talk with a good friend of ours calling in from Indianapolis, Indiana, and that is Bob Kobek, who is the president and founder of CustomerCount and Mobius Vendor Partners. Bob, how are you today?
You know, I'm having a good day. I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana, so you can see behind me. It's a little gray, it's a little chilly, but all things considered, I think it was a couple of years ago that we had a couple of feet of snow, so I'm good.
That's good to hear. And, you know, we met through efforts at the PACE Professional Association for Customer Engagement, where you did some terrific efforts at their Washington conference on government affairs. And certainly new administration coming into Washington, new leadership for some of the key regulators, the FTC, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Any thoughts you have so far on the impact or potential impact of changes with the new administration?
Yeah, you bet I do. And not only the new administration, but the new United States Senate. First of all, let me point out to you that you and I are a little older than you're giving us credit for. We met when it was the American Teleservices Association.
That's right.
A bunch of years ago, and we were the back office association management office for that. So always very involved in the politics and government that surround our industry, the industry of consumer communications. And I'll make a bit of a bold prediction, and that is with the change in the Senate, with Democrats being in the majority, I think we're going to see some consumer protection legislation coming out of that place like it was shot out of a confetti cannon, particularly surrounding the areas of transparency and privacy.
Well, certainly Consumer Financial Protection Agency has been one that the banking industry watches very closely, and discussion is that there may be new leadership there and more activity. Now, Bob, maybe you want to tell us a little bit about your career. You've been in a couple of industries and started a couple of companies. Why don't you take us through that, if you would?
I'll skip the part about it being a cold, dark night. How's that? And get right into. After college, I was recruited to work in the United States Senate in Washington, D.C. So I went to work on Capitol Hill and was detailed to the FTC and the FCC, who at that time, they were like the big promoters of this thing called telemarketing. They saw that it could push a lot of dial tone. They saw it could move a lot of products and services, and particularly the service side of things. GE with the 800 number, the call in, you know, as the first really large formal call center, happened about the time I left government politics and picked up this thing called telemarketing as my second career. And built call centers, worked in call centers, owned call centers, opened them, helped close them, all different types, for-profit, not-for-profit, United States and Sweden, and even one in then Hungary. And so when Do Not Call was coming around, I keep my ear to the ground and know what the government's doing. When I saw Do Not Call coming, it was a good time to morph my business, which was then Kobek and Associates, into my new company, which is now 21 years old, called Mobius Vendor Partners. We're a business process design and management firm. So we are the guys that are process geeks. The people that look at processes, and if it ain't broke, we break it and fix it better than it was before. And then as a part of that, everything we do naturally requires some measurement. So we built our own measurement tool, which today is a survey system called CustomerCount. And we deploy some 12 million emails a year, survey invitations to measure customer experience and employee experience at different touch points.
Well, in your Mobius Vendor Partners, you on your website, you go through the process that you use. You've got a four-part process: assessment, design, deployment, and management. And you talk about when you see something that needs attention, you immediately dive into that. Tell us a little bit about that process, if you would.
The assessment part, and there's one word that should be in there, it's the assessment with recommendations. And that means that we will look at particular processes, and I can boil it down to a call center. You know, for instance, it could be the training process, or it could be the onboarding process, or it could be the retention processes, or all of the above. It could be the technology that they're using. And so we assess and make recommendations about what it is they should do. From that point, we can develop the plan that they would need to implement those changes that we recommended. They can hire us to do it, or they can do it themselves. Most often they retain us for that part of it. And then it's the deployment, and that is always the tricky part. You know, something is going to get messed up. It's going to get messed up in the deployment because the lack of interpretation, perhaps, or I will tell you, there's always somebody that's threatened by what it is we're about to do. You know, it's there's always somebody that feels threatened. And so we have to keep our eyes open for that. And again, they don't have to hire us for deployment, but oftentimes they do. And then the management is something that we do on a pretty regular basis, particularly with our feedback system.
Good. Now, are there particular industries that you work on? I know you've got a long history working in the travel field.
Yeah, timeshare, resorts, hospitality in general is our biggest market. We currently survey for like 6,000 resorts globally, which means we come in 40. We currently support 40 languages. We can support more, but currently we support 40 languages. And you know what that means then is the ability to make certain that we can report on what it is that the client wants to find out about. I mean, the worst thing in the world is to have a survey where you're asking so what questions, and we're very careful about that.
Yeah,
particularly hospitality. I'm sorry, particularly hospitality, Ken. The hospitality industry is very brand centric, and so the part art, part science part of the survey design is really critical.
Well, as you said, we go back in the call center business for quite a while. When call center started, it was really a storefront business, and then became a development of very large call centers, a big employer in the country, and then it changed. Tell us a little bit about what your experience was in kind of the rise and then change in the contact center business.
Well, there's a couple of them, and some of them are even driven by compliance requirements. Do not call. If you think about do not call and what do not call did, not only did do not call regulate who could be called, when they could be called, how they could be called, what they could be called about, you know, as a part of the TCPA. But then also that created some pretty cool another industry, a whole nother set of businesses out there where, you know, it brought in our friends from contact center compliance, from Possible Now, Phoenix, those guys that all grew out of that one regulation, and they grew very successfully, and they continue to grow. So, you know, my attitude is when the government says they're going to regulate something, a new industry is going to pop.
Yeah, on compliance on that. Certainly, surveys are something that are used very often on the internet for products, for experiences from a whole wide variety of fields. How did you develop that service, and why has it grown so much?
It started as a way for us to confirm an assessment that we'd made to a very large company that was mailing out 4 million surveys a year, and they watched the numbers dwindle. They watched, they had 40 people that were entering data. Sometimes that data they entered was accurate, sometimes not so much. So we recommended that they put it online. And of course, now that was 11 years ago. and nobody really knew what that meant. We kind of knew what it meant, but nobody really knew what it meant. So we built scanning technology for them as a part of our recommendation and then development and deployment. We built scanning technology so that when those cards, those comment cards came back, they scanned them in, and then we built the online reports. Then the natural evolution from there was to deploy via email. At that time, they had no emails. Nobody had emails. It was kind of like the day nobody had phone numbers. I actually remember those days. And so then they started.
So do I.
Yeah. I mean, and yeah, so you know, and so then it became a matter of building the data and the database. And today we deploy using all kinds of technology. We could deploy a Facebook or a survey via Facebook. We can deploy, and most of the good feedback systems can text a survey invitation, email a survey invitation, put a survey invitation on a website, deploy it via Facebook. There's a lot of different ways to deploy it, and that, you know, the technology helps with the growth of that. But that again has its compliance issues.
And certainly the online service industry has increased so much, and certainly even during COVID, people are at home and are using online services. What are some of the important things for companies to track, to survey, to look for points of either excellent service that they provided to customers or areas where they need to solve a problem?
Every call center is going to be a little bit different in what KPIs they're measuring, the key performance indicators. Most of the KPIs from a CX standpoint, customer experience standpoint, surround, were they friendly? Did they resolve my issue without a lot of trouble? Were they nice to me? Because if you remember, I think it was Gartner that actually came out with, after the Net Promoter Score, they came out with another score called the CES, Customer Effort Score. And that customer effort score is particularly good for a call center because it asks the question, was it easy or hard to do business with me? And if the answer is it was easy to do business with me, you probably have a loyal customer. That's almost a transactional, not almost, it really is a transactional loyalty score, customer by customer, agent by agent, to say, that guy made it easy to do business with me. That lady was really good. She was very helpful, or not. And that or not part is the one, that's the customer that's going to leave you.
Very good. And when you look at things like the internet, we at CBSI spend a fair amount of time looking at comments that come in from customers who are traveling, may have a problem, may have had a canceled flight. We had a huge surge last March when customers cancellations occurred, and flights had to be rebooked, and fares had to be refunded. Are there key ways that you can look to find when customers are having special needs?
Yeah, I mean, we actually send out, like in the case of the resort industry, we send out a pre-arrival survey. You know, we know you're coming on Thursday, the 11th, that you anticipate checking in at 2 o'clock. Verify that. Is that true? Yes, it's true. Do you have any special needs, any special dietary needs, anybody in a wheelchair? And so you can actually send out a pre-survey. And that happens, we do that also in some sales environments where there's an agent or somebody's going to go to a home, or a customer is going to come to your office, and you can actually send them a pre-qualifying survey. You can also, back to the compliance stuff, you can tell I'm a little bit crazy about compliance stuff, but even in the compliance stuff right now with Do Not Call, as a part of our system, we actually can ask the question, can we call you? And if they say yes, then we drop the FCC declaratory language and say, check here if you agree to this. And when they do that, then that is express written permission. So it satisfies the FCC's declaratory ruling. It satisfies any class action lawyer, so it takes them out of the mix. And it takes that individual off of a do not call list because they've given you permission to call.
So important. Now, one of the things that you and I have spoken about that COVID has really expedited is use of remote agents, as so many call center staff have shifted to working at home. Certainly had a big impact for the banking industry trying to serve customers. But remote agents brings a new set of challenges. Well, how did you see the switch to remote agents working over the past year?
I saw it as being pretty smooth, and the technology really had a lot to do with that. And I will tell you, I mean, I had clients, consulting clients that 5 years ago said, I'll do remote agents over my dead body. And today they can't get to it fast enough because it does reduce their cost. It doesn't impact the efficiencies. The technology travels with that agent. And, one of the areas that we've worked pretty closely in is in the area of hiring the spouses of active military, because those people can work anywhere. If they are on a military base, the military supports them being hired. So the military will actually help that company recruit. And when the active deployment is over and that individual moves back to Indianapolis, Indiana, or Northern New York, they can take the job with them. So that kind of thing, the remote agent piece also reduces turnover.
And
there are a lot of good reasons to do it.
Yes, and one of the other areas that really facilitates that is cloud computing, being able to have software that can be downloaded to a remote agent site, easily accessible, uploading data. And how did you see cloud computing? There's been different concerns over the years about data security in a cloud. Where is the data physically being stored? But I think this COVID really kind of created a necessity for more businesses to utilize cloud. How have you seen it grown over the last year?
Well, hackers are going to hack. I mean, there's only one guarantee against getting hacked, and that is cyber insurance. We in our case and in most intelligent cases, every little bit of data is encrypted. So if we got hacked, God forbid, what they would see is a bunch of stuff that looked like it was in Greek. And that is one really big change. And the challenge with encrypting data like that, and for us and for anybody that's collecting data, is that when you encrypt data, that means you also have to decrypt data in order to satisfy reporting requirements or satisfy even GDPR. If somebody in the GDPR, that whole data protection issue that came out of the UK or out of the EU. Now even the California law says that if I request it, you got to remove my data. Well, if that data is sitting back there encrypted in the cloud, then somehow you have to be able to decrypt that data and find that one record and remove that one record and report back to that customer what it is you did with that data, which, by the way, is why transparency is getting to be more and more critical. When you ask a customer for information, you need to tell them what you're going to do with it.
Yes. Now, the California law that the voters approved last November, there'll be a time before it's implemented, but it will bring privacy laws similar to the EU. Do you see that causing marketers to have to make significant changes?
I think it's gonna. I think that one of the things that is really kind of a challenge. It's going to be a challenge, a lot like Do Not Call. Do Not Call came out, started in, I think Texas was the first one, and then Indiana followed suit. Well, then we ended up with 50 Do Not Call, and then the FTC came out with one that was kind of overarching, which meant then that you had 51 different statutes that you had to conform to, which again is why the success of our friends and companies like Possible Now, Contact Center Compliance, and Phoenix, why those guys, they built those platforms to help satisfy that. But geez, if that was any indication, then I will tell you the whole privacy thing. Last time I looked, there were 47 states that had privacy legislation on their books, getting ready to. And I'm a member of a coalition called the Enterprise Communication Advocacy Coalition. And those are the things that we're in Washington to say, could we get one law, please, and hurry up so that we can, we don't like to use that word preemption because attorneys general don't like that word, but effectively that's what we're hoping to do. Let's get in there first. Let's have one law, one privacy law that we can all deal with, all live with. We understand it. We know it's necessary, but let's not make it so onerous that we did with like do not call that just made it real expensive to comply.
Yes, preemption, something that the national trade groups, the Direct Marketing Association spent a lot of time encouraging that, trying to come up with a single national standard for businesses to be able to comply with. Do you see that as something that may be a priority in the coming year or two?
Yeah, and that's why that enterprise communication advocacy group that I'm a member of, that's one of the things that we're very focused on right now. And that's one of the things that I really anticipate the Senate focusing on. There was a time when Chuck Schumer and John Kerry were members of the United States Senate before Kerry got elevated. They were the big privacy guys. They were big privacy guys. And today you've got Markey and you've got Chuck Schumer and a couple of other members of the United States Senate on the Democratic side that are going to keep pushing this privacy issue. And I mean, to me, that's the next big deal, regulatory big deal in our industry. And it's also one of the things that there's going to be some companies that are going to grow out of this that, are going to help with privacy compliance.
Another topic that we've talked with people in the banking trade, also in the contact center trade, are the consequences of some of the efforts to limit robocalling, unwanted calls to customers' homes and cell phones. And some of the call blocking measures have limited the ability of businesses to call their customers. And is that something that, as far as you see the efforts to reduce robocalling, something that businesses can live with to try to be able to continue to call their customers?
On some level. On some level. I mean, I'm sure you've had the opportunity, Ken, to talk to Rebecca from Numerical. Her company has a big focus on making sure that legitimate, what we refer to as legal calls from your doctor, your school, your pharmacy, that those legal calls can get through. I mean, and so again, it's one of those businesses that sprung out of a need for regulation. And now the regulation has been passed. And there's this thing called stir shaken, which is real complicated, that if you don't hire the right consultant, you're going to go off on a bad path. Here's an interesting little factoid. There's 500 or 600 different apps out there that you can load on your phone that will block robocalls. I venture a guess, anecdotally, but I'll venture a guess that 400 of them are manufactured by the people that are making the robocalls.
Interesting.
So
okay.
Their calls are getting through.
Well, Bob, let's talk a little bit about going into the new year. COVID is still a terrible pandemic affecting the country. Vaccines are slowly going into distribution. What do you see the impact going over the year? Some are starting to say by May or June, July, we may see enough people vaccinated that many avenues of commerce will be able to continue. What's your forecast of the impact of COVID for 2021?
We all know, we all hear the bad news, and I know how many people are God bless them, how many souls are being lost. And I just watched President Biden give his latest assessment, where just finished, like a half an hour ago, talking about how he's going to up the ante to 150 million vaccinated people in his first 100 days. We all want him to get there. We all want this to slow down. We all want this to go away so that we can get back to what we would call a new normal, which I don't know what that means. I don't know what normal means, actually. But to me, then there's a flip side of this whole thing. And it's what we did in our business life. And I talked to a lot of my business associates and my friends that own their own businesses. And they took this time, used this time for innovation. We put a lot of innovation into our software over the last 7 or 8 months. It gave us the opportunity because we gave all of our clients relief. We told them, you know, we gave them 2/3 off of their bill, basically, off their monthly subscription price for our software. So because we understand, you know, hey, if we're struggling, they got to be struggling. If they're not loading files for us to survey, then why are we billing them? So we invoice those clients just enough to make sure that we can keep the home fires burning. And at the same time, then took that time to pull all of our operations people together, our business development people together, and say, what can we invent? What can we create to make us bigger, better, faster, stronger? You know, kind of like the $6 million man, only a poor man's $6 million man. And so we came up with cool new ideas and cool new things. We now have, we could pass a HIPAA compliance certification. We're moving towards SOC 2. We're going into working our way towards B Corp status, Benefit Corp status. So we, and I think a lot of other companies, use this for innovation. And just to kind of, sorry, it's a long answer, but if you remember 2008, those were tough times. But more new businesses sprung out of 2008, sustainable new businesses came out of 2008 than at any time in our history. And I think the same thing is going to happen here. I think because people have lost their jobs, and these are good people, intelligent people, smart people, that new job creation is going to accelerate and new businesses are going to accelerate.
Well, we see that too. It's a time for innovation, certainly to learn how to be, how to generate engagement with customers online, and to build an online presence for businesses. Let me just ask you on that point. I always like to talk about how can we help small businesses. Many we talk to are struggling with learning how to use digital technology, even some of the elements of social media. Do you have any advice for small businesses, how they can build their engagement, build their profile during this period?
Well, you know, the whole social digital media phenomenon, I find this, you know, I find it as intriguing as it is frustrating for me. When I talk to and interview digital media companies, and I do that pretty regularly, I have a couple that I work with that I'm very mostly happy with. You can't be 100% happy because what these guys, what they're good at, really good at, is they're good at business to consumer marketing. They know how to get to the Facebook user, the Instagram user, they know how to get to all those individuals, but they don't know how to digitally market to companies. LinkedIn is probably one of the few that maybe really has that significant focus on getting to other businesses, and small businesses should be using that tool to get out there. And it's frustrating because you got to do it all the time. You really can't miss a day if you're going to be using LinkedIn as your platform. So you just have to keep going and use the, you know, I used to golf before it made me so mad I had to quit. But when I went to a golf clinic, and there was a guy there that the pro that was there, and he said, you know, there's one thing that for some reason I don't understand, but that people don't do, particularly amateur golfers, is you don't stay with the technology. The new technology and golf clubs today alone are going to take strokes off your score. So stick with the stay with the technology. I encourage businesses today to stay with the technology. Don't be thinking old.
Absolutely. Now, one other question for you. We're kind of doing a survey on STEM education, and you went to a liberal arts college, as I did, and but we've seen so much technology added to business in the scope of our careers, just from email to mobile technology. I even always point out barcodes as having been a big innovation for shipping, as we see it today. How do you feel students should approach learning through possibly STEM education programs? How they can become more adept at handling technology such as you are using in your business every day?
You know, good one. We have a partnership with the Indiana University, Purdue University School of Computer Science here in Indy. And what that does is that means that we are able to sponsor and happy to sponsor capstone classes and hold webinars. You know, like our next one is in February 15th, I think, where we're inviting some people that have started their own tech businesses to come in and talk to students about how to form a technology company, if you would, if that's your bent. And remembering, of course, that not all students are 18 years old. Some of them are in their 40s and 50s, and they're starting their second career and going through, you know, the university system to do that. And so by embracing inside the universities that themselves, if you're in school or if you're at a trade school, understanding that if you're going to be a mechanic, you don't need to learn how to turn a wrench so much as you need to learn how to hook up a computer. And so technology is driving everything we do. There was a time when I remember I couldn't hook up a VCR. I had to call my neighbor around the corner, you know, 12-year-old Mikey, to come over and help me hook up my VCR. Well, today we're all so wired. It's, you know.
And we're all trying to get our home offices set up so that we can connect, and it is a challenge. But Bob Kobek, great to talk with you today. A final thought for our audience about approaching this new year?
Well, first of all, yeah, it's good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. I think the last time was at the last PACE Washington Summit, so it's good to see your face. And then I will tell you that for this coming year, unity's the thing. Let's stop being so nasty to each other, and our businesses will grow. I'm as guilty as anybody, I'm sure, but you know, at this particular juncture in our lives, it's time to focus on business, time to focus on our economy. Let's get people well. Let's help people get well, and push it forward. That sounds kind of Pollyanna, but if you sit back and really think hard about it, it's a very doable, simple, doable way to conduct your business.
Absolutely, and it's good to see you. I remember your leadership at many of the PACE meetings in Washington, D.C. I remember we were talking about at the time that that Mick Mulvaney came in to visit our meeting, and he went on from Congress and to positions at the White House, Chief of Staff, and you really brought the organization in touch with government leaders and influencers, and it was great to work with you on those projects.
Well, I appreciate that, Ken. And you know, one of the things that we made sure that we kept trying to do was create the awareness that we're in a regulated industry, you know, and today we're even more regulated. So be thinking transparency, be thinking privacy, be thinking security. That's where you want to, your business needs to be today.
Absolutely. Bob Kobek, who is the president and founder of Mobius Vendor Partners in Indianapolis, Indiana, and CustomerCount. Great to talk with you today. Look forward to staying in touch, and great to visit.
It's a pleasure, Ken. I enjoyed it.
Our pleasure. This is Ken Kraetzer for CBSI Services based in Harrison, New York. Our interview series, CBSI Talking Business, all to highlight the work of our team at CBSI, taking care of our customers, working from home remotely during COVID-19. And again, from my home office in White Plains, New York, this is Ken Kraetzer.